then. Okay.
So last week stuff, where can I find last week stuff?
So I need to still upload it. There's a bit of a
Okay.
backlog because this computer is a bit slow and like
Mm,
upload during the evening because it takes like
okay.
4 hours to upload to YouTube.
Oh, okay. Okay, no
Yeah, so it
problem.
takes a bit
I
of
got
time.
you.
So then I'll
No
let you know,
problem.
okay? So
Thank you.
I'm gonna switch to my scenario,
Yes.
um, and then we'll go through. Okay, so we're gonna do question 1. So you will see they have basically cost volume analysis,
Mm,
standard costing, budgeting, and then activity
mm.
based. So we're going to focus on activity based costing and traditional costing. Okay.
So I know that is the ABC. They call
Yes.
it the ABC. Okay.
ABC.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. No, that's fine.
So we're going to do question 1. We're going to read from question 1, and
Mm,
we're gonna read just up until point 3.3. Beyond that
okay.
is not for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come into the questions.
No
Okay.
problem.
So they say Imvula Ltd is a medium-sized company that uses rubber imported from China to manufacture and sell 3 different types of women's rain boots, namely
Mm,
glossy, fashion, and standard. Okay, so you might just now remember it's PTY Ltd, so it's
okay. That's
a
private.
private
Mm-hmm.
company. It's not
Mm,
very big to understand to know that from a Mac or from a
mm,
Mac 3701 point of view, but generally in accounting, it's nice to know that you must take
mm.
note you're busy with a private company.
Private. Mm,
Okay, so they import rubber
mm.
from China, and then they manufacture and sell 3 products. Okay, so it's
Okay.
very important to know that the number of products that you sell from a cost cost accounting point of view.
Okay.
So we have 3 products: glossy, fashion, standard. Very
Mm,
important from a cost accounting point of view. Um, and then just you keep, at least in the back of your mind, know that you manufacture and sell. So therefore you're generally going to come across a manufacturer in cost accounting, because in a
mm.
manufacturing environment, that's where they can test all the nice cost accounting topics. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So that's important to note. And then now and then they throw some strategy risk management question into cost accounting. It is mainly a financial management question, but sometimes they throw
Mm,
it in this Mac. So knowing that you are importing rubber from China, that's important to understand
mm,
how you do
mm,
your business. Okay.
mm. Yes. Yes.
Now they say the manufacturing process is highly automated with very little human intervention. The company
Okay.
operates from the Roslyn area in Gauteng and distribute the rain boots to retailers within South Africa.
Okay.
Bula's financial year end is 31 December and it operates for all the 12 months of the year. Imvula uses an absorption costing system and values
Okay.
all its inventory items using the FIFO method. Identifying the costing system in cost
Mm-hmm.
accounting is extremely important. You have 2 types of costing systems. You have the variable costing system and you have the absorption costing system.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, your brain must already identify what's the relevance of an absorption costing system
Mm,
versus a variable costing system. So understand that a costing system tells you what is included in the cost of a product, in the cost
yes.
of an inventory. So a
Mm,
costing system tells you what is included in the cost of a product, or a cost of inventory. Cost of product, cost of inventory, same thing. Now
okay.
remember, the cost of a product is made up of 3 things: direct material, direct
Mm,
labor, manufacturing
fair.
overheads.
Mm,
So
mm,
whenever they ask you, dear Alvina, please calculate the cost of a product, you must
mm,
know the cost of a product is made up of 3 things: direct
okay.
material, direct labor, manufacturing
Actually,
overheads.
okay.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing overheads is made up of fixed and variable.
Mm-hmm.
So under the variable costing system, it is only variable manufacturing
Mm.
overheads, whereas the absorption costing system is both variable as well as fixed manufacturing
Mm.
overheads. So it's important to note. So the difference between variable and absorption costing system is the treatment of fixed
Fixed.
manufacturing
Okay.
overheads. Okay, very, very important. Just another important aspect that you need to be aware of. So we say the cost of a product is made up of three things: direct material,
Mm-hmm.
direct labor, manufacturing overheads. It's important to know they're not always going to call it direct material. They'll give you the actual items, the actual material. So then you must
Okay.
know, okay, rubber is a direct material. Okay, they're not going to say
Yeah.
direct material. So just take note of that. And then similarly, you may not necessarily have all three. Like in this case, we probably won't have direct labor because I told you over here that
They
it's
use
a
machine.
automated,
Mm. Mm.
highly automated
Means
process.
machinery.
Okay,
Mm.
so that's important. So
Okay.
I just wanted to be aware of that.
Thank you.
Now we go to number one. Now, that bold line item is very important. There's three key points in that one sentence. Number one, so I'm going to read the sentence and I'll tell you the three key information, and you must always be on the lookout for it. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so they say number one, budget information for the financial year ending 31 December 2018. So the three important information over there is the type of information. It is budget, not actual. So always make sure you
Okay.
can identify and distinguish between budget versus actual. Why that's important? When they give the required, they're going to ask you for budget or actual. So it
Mm.
will help you to know where you need to look. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So very important, distinguish between budget and actual. The second, it's the period. Over here, they're talking you for the financial year. So it's for
Okay.
the entire year. In another
Okay.
question, in another part of the question, or in a different question, they can give you information relating to a month or a quarter or a unit. Okay,
Okay.
those are very
Okay.
important. Okay, and then the third important aspect is the date, because when they,
Okay.
oh, when they talk to the required, they will most likely mention a date. That will
Mm.
also help you to navigate where in the question you need to find, because now you will
Oh,
see they're asking you for budgeted information at 31 December 2018. So you know, okay, I need to look under number one. Okay,
okay.
so that helps you to navigate. So that's very important. Now we go reading the actual detail. They say
Mm.
following 4 years of consecutive decline in the market share, Ms. Reindeer, the chief executive officer, is concerned that the continuing decline in sales demand will have an impact of the company's ability to break even. The company's in-house market research division established that Imvula's customer base is increasingly becoming socially and environmentally conscious and are therefore voting with their feet in protest to Imvula's usage of rubber. Okay, just some kind of background information over there.
Mm.
Now, 1.1. The following are extracts from the budget for the financial year ending 31 December 2019.
18.
Okay, 31, oh, 2018. I thought I want to say somebody didn't look right.
Mm.
2018. Okay, so you have three columns: glossy, fashion, standard. They're giving
Mm.
you the selling price per unit.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving you the gross profit per unit. They're giving you number of units manufactured and sold, and they're giving you machine minutes per unit, and they're giving you rubber used per unit.
Per unit.
Okay, so you might just take note of that. We will have to obviously have a look where we will use this information.
Okay.
So they will say a pair of rain boots is equal to 1 unit because rain boots can only be sold as a
Mm.
pair. The manufacturing and sales of rain boots will occur evenly throughout the financial year. variable selling cost per unit is 2% of the selling price per unit. The fixed manufacturing overheads are absorbed based on annual budgeted machine hours. The related budgeted absorption rate was calculated at 40 Rand per machine hour. The absorption rate is the same as the fixed overhead rate. So the absorption rate is another term for the fixed manufacturing overhead.
Okay.
The fixed manufacturing overhead rate. Um, the way you calculate the fixed manufacturing overhead rate is as follows. Fixed manufacturing overhead rate equals budgeted costs, budgeted fixed overheads divided by budgeted activity. Okay,
Okay.
so the fixed overhead rate, which is also known as the absorption rate, is equal to fixed fixed
But
overheads.
mm-hmm.
Budgeted fixed overheads
Budgeted fixed overhead.
divided by budgeted activity. Now,
Okay.
the term activity relates to the basis of allocating overheads. How do they allocate overheads? That is your activity. So in this case, they're telling you it's 40 Rand per machine hour. So
Hour.
that
Okay.
means machine hours is your activity. Okay, so it's very
Okay.
important. Okay, so let's move on.
1.6.
So number 6, the fixed non-manufacturing costs were budgeted to be a total of 2.8 million for the financial year, and the fixed selling cost to be 1 million Rand for the financial year. Okay, so that's the important information for us in number 1, for relative to what we're going to be calculating. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
reading the scenario because we're gonna work through this question paper as we go through the semester.
Okay.
The following are extracts from the month of May 2018 actual results. So here
Okay.
it is for 1 month, May
Yes.
2018 actual
Mm,
results. So that's the
actual. Mm-hmm.
3 important information you always must take a note of.
Okay.
So number 2.1, the finished goods production statement shows you for glossy fashion standard, opening units, manufactured units, sales units, and then the closing inventory. They're telling you that the total actual manufacturing overheads were 224,600 Rand, and the actual machine hours were 2,000 for glossy, 1,500 for fashion, and 1,400 for standard. Okay,
Standard.
so that is just giving some actual information. So here we're going to read up until number 3 because this is the information we're going to use to answer um, the activity-based question.
Okay.
So the allocation of the fixed manufacturing overheads using ABC. Ms. Reindeer is considering a change from allocating the fixed manufacturing overheads from using the traditional costing system to using the activity-based, the ABC system.
Mm.
The actual FMO, the actual fixed manufacturing overheads for May, were further analyzed, and the following relationships between actual and the related activities were established. So the activities are logo, quality inspections, machine costs, and then there you can see they're breaking it down and they get to the
Mm.
total 224,600.
600. Okay.
Okay, then they say logo is printed as follows on glossy, on the sole of each rain boot, on the sole and on both inner sole and all of that. I'm not going to read all of it. We can come to more detail
Mm.
when we do the question. 3.2, 1.5% of glossy units, 2% of fashion units, and 1% of standard. And then they're giving you some, the machine cost is driven by the number of production runs. Glossy's production runs contains 220, fashion 180, and standard 255. I'm going to explain that in more detail when we tackle the question.
Okay.
So now we're going to do the activity-based question. I was going to go show you the required, and then I will give you a brief overview on activity-based costing, and then we will tackle the actual question.
Okay.
So we're going to do number D. Number D says, calculate the total fixed manufacturing overheads allocated to each product for the month of May 2018 using ABC. Okay, so there you know, they're saying calculate. So the word calculate means you can do whatever you want to do. Okay, a calculation can be done in any way.
Okay.
What do they want? Actual fixed manufacturing overheads for the month of May. So you know
Mm.
actual information was under number 3 and number 2,
Mm.
but they want ABC. ABC is under number 3. Okay,
3.
so that helps you to navigate where to look within the scenario.
Mm.
So now I'm going to do it on Excel. I'm just going to open up Excel quickly, and then I'm going to give you an
Okay.
overview of.
ABC.
Okay, you should see Excel.
Okay.
Okay, so before we tackle the question, let's give an overview. So in the first week, we covered nature and classification. We covered variable costing versus absorption costing. We covered traditional costing and ABC. So as you had mentioned, the variable and absorption costing is all about absorption and variable costing are costing systems. A costing system tells you what to include. Okay, so for example, the cost of a product, it tells you what to include in the cost of a product. A cost of a product includes three things: direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overheads. But it's that under manufacturing overheads that you must pay careful attention.
Mm.
Under the variable costing system, we only include variable manufacturing overheads, whereas under the absorption costing system, we include both variable manufacturing
Variable
overheads
plus
and fixed
fix.
manufacturing overheads. So that's important to understand. Okay.
Okay.
Now, under absorption costing system, you can break it down into two more costing systems. So you have the we know we have the variable costing system and the absorption costing system, but the absorption costing system is broken up into two. The first one is what we always do, and that is the absorption costing system using the traditional costing method to allocate fixed overheads. Then the second
Okay.
one is the absorption costing system using ABC to
BC. Okay.
allocate fixed overheads. So what's important to note? Variable costing and absorption costing tells you what to include in the cost of a product, which is the three things: direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead.
Manufacturing of it.
The traditional costing method and ABC, the activity-based costing method, tells you or shows you how to allocate overheads. And for our purposes, how to allocate fixed overheads. So just keep
Okay.
that in mind. The purpose of the additional costing and the purpose of ABC is a method used to allocate fixed manufacturing overheads. In reality, it's for any overheads, but for our purposes, we use it for fixed manufacturing
Okay.
overheads. Okay, so take note of that. So what's the difference between the two? The traditional costing method uses one allocation basis to allocate
Mm.
overheads to all products. So for
Mm.
example, in this question, they used machine hours. So they
Hours.
take
Okay.
the total overheads divided by machine hours and they allocate it to all products. Whereas
Okay.
the activity-based costing method says that identify the activities that makes up the cost. Okay, so they say,
Okay.
here's all your costs that you have for fixed overheads. Now identify the activities that makes up this cost. So like we had
Mm.
over here, it was
Logo
logo
printing.
printing. I can't remember the other two now. Okay, so
Quality inspection. Mm.
yeah, so they identify the activities that makes up the cost. Now that you
Okay.
have that, now that you have identified the activities, your next step is to identify what drives those activities. When
Mm.
we say what drives those activities, what causes that activity to increase, what causes the cost of that activity to decrease. Okay. So the cost driver indicates or tells you what causes this activity's cost to increase, what causes this activity's cost to decrease. So in our
Okay.
example, the number of logo prints will determine the cost of the logo printing
Printing.
activity.
Mm.
So that is the difference. So activity-based costing will give you a more accurate, um, accurate allocation, provided that the input data is accurate. Because if the input data is not
Okay.
accurate, you're going to get it wrong. Assuming the input
Mm.
data is accurate, you will get a more accurate way to allocate costs. But as you could think in the real world, this is a huge, it's a huge process and task. So
Mm.
it's a
And
costly, so the
expensive.
disadvantage of ABC, it is a costly process. So it's for
Mm.
management to decide based on the cost benefit analysis,
Mm. Mm.
whether you would um, implement it or not. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that is
Mm.
basically the difference between the two. But it's important to note ABC and traditional costing are methods to allocate fixed
Fixed
manufacturing
overhead. Mm.
overheads. Okay. Now, there's a method to setting up activity-based costing. So the way we do it, we will go and I'll give you a table. So the table will look as follows. You will identify the activities. The activities is given to us. Then we identify the costs. The cost is given to us.
Mm.
I like to put in this column. I put in this column, I call it cost driver units, whatever, I don't know what other word to call it. And then I will actually say cost driver, and then I will say cost per unit. The one I'm highlighting, I sort of format this quickly. The one I'm going to highlight soon in The one I'm going to highlight in orange soon is you don't have to put that column in. I put it in because in the exam you're going to be under so much pressure and all of those type of things. And what I found when I had this cost driver, the unit over there, it kept my head in check because it's
Okay.
easy to get confused or to forget what the unit is because in a difficult question they will mix them up. So,
Okay.
and then you will need to, if you are under extreme pressure, this may be one of the last questions and you're running for time. That
Mm.
extra column just takes probably a 5 minutes extra, but it can save you so much marks because it's just keeping your head straight. Because as you're doing
Mm.
calculations, your head will obviously will make calculations, but you will be glancing over whatever you're writing. And I have
Mm.
picked it up that by just having that column, you would actually realize, oh shucks, I'm using the wrong units, and then
Mm.
easily correct it. But it's not
Okay.
you don't have to. So this one here in orange, you don't have to have. So activities was given, and it is. Let's go
Logo
back to
printing.
it is logo printing, quality inspections, machine costs.
Cost.
Okay, so logo printing,
Printing. Mm-hmm.
quality inspections,
Inspection.
and what do we say? Machine cost.
Machine cost.
Okay, so that is given. We keep it as such. The cost, it is 12,
12,000.
30, 12,000,
One.
then
30,600
30,600,
and
then
182,000.
182,000. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so here we will have total. So here I'm going to have total, which equals sum. Okay, so we know the total cost should add up to what they gave us, 224,
Mm.
600. Okay, so we're happy with that. Now comes the interesting part. Like I said, the orange you don't need, but I'm going to put it in. You don't need to put it in, but you have to identify it. Without
Okay.
identifying the orange, you won't be able to come up with a cost
With the
driver.
cost
Okay,
driver. Okay.
so when they talk about logo printing. Now, just looking at
Mm.
3.1, they say in Vula's logo is printed as follows. On the glossy, it is on the sole of each rain boot. So one
Mm.
pair would have two logos, one on each
Mm.
boot. Okay.
Mm.
3.1.2 fashion, it's on the sole and on both inner side
Inside
and
and
outer
outside.
side of each, when it's on the both the
Mm.
inner and the outer side of each rainbow. So I'm assuming that is
Mm.
5 because it
Mm.
is on both the inner. No, that is 3, right? So it's the
Mm.
sole, inner side, and outer side, right?
Mm.
So
Yes.
that is 3 per boot. So that means it's 6 per pair.
Mm.
You follow
Mm.
that,
Yes, I
okay?
am.
And then on the standard, it is on the sole and the outer side. So that is 2 per boot. So it is 4
Four.
per
Mm.
pair. So by
Yeah.
reading that information, you must be able to tell yourself that the cost of logo printing is driven by the number of
Mm.
logo prints. So you
Print.
must be able to pick that up. They're not telling you, but reading
Mm.
the information, you must be able to say, okay, based on the logo, you can think about that it is going to be on the number of logo prints. So if you just think about
Print.
stamp that you would have to stamp on, you have to buy ink for the stamp, right?
Mm.
Ink will basically dry up based on the number of times you have to make
Mm.
a
Mm.
stamp. So
Stamp.
that would be driving that cost. So same thing
Mm.
over here, it would be the number of logos that you have to
To
print.
print.
So now
Mm.
I will go and I'll plug in over here and I'll say, just to remind myself, this is number of logos. If you logo
Mm.
prints, if you don't put it here, you're gonna have to tell them in your workings. Okay, so I'm just putting it over here.
Okay.
Because when you use the number of logo prints, you need to tell them I'm using number of logo prints. I'm just
Prints.
putting it over
Okay.
here so they know when I do my calculation, I'm using number of logo prints.
Okay.
So for the quality of inspection, they say 1.5% of the glossy units, 2% of the fashion units, and 1% of the standard units. What you will realize that the quality inspection is generally driven by the number
The
of
number
quality
of unit
inspections. Okay, it
inspections.
was
Okay.
driven by the number of quality
Quality inspection.
inspections. Now you are right. The number of quality inspection is driven by the number of units. Okay.
Mm.
Then machine, it will most probably be the number of machine hours.
Hours.
Okay, so you will say number of machine hours. So this is something you're gonna have to pick up in different scenarios. And hopefully by reading it, you will be able to know the cost is driven by number of logo prints,
Mm.
driven by the number of quality inspections, driven by the number of machine hours. The more questions you will do, you'll also get a gauge of what what units drive each activity. So like in quality inspections is a typical one, machine costs is a typical one, setup cost is a typical
Mm.
one. So for example, for setup cost, it will be the number of setups. It's
Set
not
up.
always number of, okay? Just take note.
Mm.
It just happened to
Okay.
be over here, okay?
Okay.
Now we can get our cost driver, and this is where the big marks lie. Okay, so in
Mm.
activity-based costing, this is where the big marks lie. So the 9-mark question, this is where most of the 9 marks will lie. Okay.
Okay.
So what I do, what you must note, that when the examiner comes to onto my paper, they're going to see this, which is the actual answer. my workings is going to be below. I don't even
Okay.
come on to part D and look at my workings. When they come on to part D, they see the actual answer and I'll
Mm.
provide the workings below.
Okay.
So there's the workings. I'm just doing some formatting. So here I'm going to have working 1.
Okay.
So for my cost driver, let's have a look for the cost driver. So let's work it out. So they're saying glossy, 1 on each. So I'm going to do it like this. So it is going to be details, then it's going to be glossy, as in I write it in full, glossy, fashion, what was the other one? Standard. So what drives it? It's the number of prints. Okay. So now I'm going to say number of logo prints
And
per boot. Okay. So I'm saying number of logo prints per boot. Okay. But I know 1 unit is 2 boots. Okay. So now
2
I'm going to
books.
say number of boots per unit. Okay, because remember they're giving me the number of prints per boot, but I know 1 unit is 2 boots. So you
2
must
books.
keep note of that. And then, but we want a total number. We don't want per unit. We want a total. It's best to do activity based on a total level, and then at the end you do it per unit.
Okay.
So the way the question is provided, they're giving me logo prints per boot, but I know each unit is made up of 2 boots.
2 books.
So for example, in glossy, they only printed on each sole.
So,
So that means each boot had 1 print,
mm,
but each unit have how many boots? 2.
2.
Okay, but I want a total level. So I'm going to say multiplied by number of units. So remember,
Okay.
this will make, you're going to have to always understand how you're going to get to the total number of prints or the
Yes.
total number per product. So it's going to be
Mm.
driven in different ways depending on the scenario.
Okay.
So for glossy, how many units? I can't remember. For glossy, number of units produced is
Number of units.
somewhere.
So,
Yeah.
manufacturer is 480,000.
No. So
Is
yeah, it's
it?
going to be 4,400. So
Oh,
fashion.
I'm by the other one. Sorry.
So we were using actual information.
Not the manufacturer.
So it
Sorry. I
is
didn't look at it's 2.1. Yeah.
4,400. I'm going to put in all quickly. 4,400. Other one was 1,800.
1,800 and 5,100.
5,100. Okay, so that is the number of units.
Manufactured.
Okay, number of units manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a look at this one, we're saying there's 1 logo print per boot, but each
Mm.
unit has 2 boots. That's why I am. So this here, I can also drag across because it is each unit have 2 boots.
2
Okay.
words.
So that is going to remain the same. I want to get to a total number. That's why I multiplied now by the number of units. Okay, so I'm
Units.
going to say 1 logo per boot, but each unit has 2 boots, and the total
Mm.
number of units I've manufactured is 4,400. You follow that, okay?
Yes.
Then for fashion, how many, for fashion, how many logos per boot? It was 3, one on the
3.
sole, one on the inner side, and one on the
And then the
outer
outer.
side. Okay, so that is 3. So therefore, it's going to be 3 times 2 times 1,800.
Mm.
And then for this one, I can't remember what it was.
Two.
Was it
Only
2?
two.
Oh, is it
It's one on the sole and one on the outer side of
right? So
each
this is
rainbow.
2. Okay, so it's 2 per boot, but there's 2 boots in 1 unit multiplied by the number of units manufactured. So that gives me 20,400. But over
Mm.
here, I'm interested in the total. So
Okay.
therefore, I'm going to bring on total.
Total.
So I'm going to say the sum of all of these. Okay, so therefore it is
40,000.
40,000. So the cost per unit would be as follows: 12,000 divided by
Divided 40.
40,000. Okay, so the cost per logo is 30 cents.
30
Okay,
cents.
so the cost per logo print is 30 cents
30
per
cents.
unit. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, now let's go on to the quality inspection. So I'm just going to show over here. This is, I can find this
A working one.
working one. So now I'll go to working two. So now I'm going to do for quality inspections. So it's going to be the same. Okay, so I need to, if I look at the information, they're telling me the number of units is 1.5%,
Mm.
2%, and so forth. So I can just work that out. So I'm going to say number of units. I can take the exact same info. So we know the number of units is the same, and the percentage was based on this. It's going to be the percentage. So it was 1.5%. Then it was
2%,
2%.
percent,
Then
and
it was
1%.
1%.
1%.
Okay. Okay. So now we're able to get the number of inspections, because they are saying the number of inspections is 1.5% of the total manufactured of
Mm.
glossy. The number of inspections for fashion is the number of is 2% of how much was manufactured and so
The
forth. So
units.
therefore, they're
Mm.
saying how many inspections they made. It is equal to the number of products, but
Mm.
it's not based on the number of products, based on the number
Mm.
of inspections.
Mm.
Okay, so
Okay.
therefore it's 4,400 multiplied by 1.5%. So that is 66
66.
inspections. That
Mm.
is 36 inspections, and that is 51
51
inspections.
inspections.
So when I add up the total, it gives me 153
153
inspections.
inspections.
What's important to note over here, if it was 153.5, you must know you can't do a zero point 0.5 inspection. Okay, it will
Like
have to
round
be
up.
154.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. So even if it is 153.2, you must always round up.
round up,
You
because
can't
they
round.
have to
Okay.
do an X, because based on their theory it is they have to do. So if it's
Another
round
inspection.
it up, and sometimes you will round down. It
Mm.
depends on, you just have to think on how they word the scenario. Okay,
Okay.
but in this case you're going to round down.
Up.
Okay, so I'm going to say equal to that. Number of inspections is 153. So the cost of inspection would be 30,600 divided by 153. So the cost per inspection
200.
is 200
200.
Rand.
Then
Now we do a similar thing for the machine hours, um, but they gave it to us. So I'm just going to go see. The number of machine hours was given. The machine cost is driven by the number of production runs. Um, oh, so I got this wrong. It's not number of machine hours. They said number of production runs. So it's product.
runs.
So I must say number of
Production
production
runs.
runs. Okay, so they said glossy production runs contain 250 units, 180 units, and 255 units. So must be very
Okay.
careful here now. Okay, so I'm using that same information number of units. Okay,
Okay.
but they saying each run. Okay, so we're going to say units per run, per production run. So they're saying each run contains 220, 180, 255,
Mm-hmm.
220, 180, 255.
So you're
That
gonna
will tell
divide now.
you, yes, now we're going to divide. That's
Okay.
going to tell you how many runs you need to have.
Two. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say, to give you this is number of inspections. This is
Number of
number
unit.
of logo prints.
Mm.
This over here will end up being number of runs or production runs.
Runs.
Okay, so now we're going to say that divided by that. So it is
Mm.
20,
20. All right.
um, 20 runs. Once again, if it had to be zero point 0.5, you'd have to have 21 runs.
One. Okay.
Okay, but they wouldn't do that because they would obviously want to manage their resources. But basically, if it happens to be that,
Mm.
okay. So now we're gonna get the total. So it is 50 runs in total. So I'm gonna say equal to 50. So now we'll be able to work out a cost per run. It was
Mm-hmm.
182 divided by 50, and that's gonna give me
3,000.
3640. So that's what it costs to, and then
And
I can
that's the
show
most cost.
where they're getting. So that is how it works. Now, now we're going to allocate to the actual product. Okay, so we're going to have glossy. We're going to have fashion,
Fashion.
and then we're going to have standard.
Standard.
Okay, so how this will be units, costs. Okay, so that's what's going to be over there. So that is how it's going to be. Now you can simply go and fetch the units from your calculation. So the
Okay.
units for the unit for glossy under logo print is 8,800.
Mm.
Okay. So its cost of logo prints would be 30 cents, the cost per unit, multiplied by
8,000.
8,800. Similarly, over there, the quality inspections for glossy is going to be 66.
6.
Okay, the cost is going to be equal to 200 per unit multiplied by the
Times
number of units, and that is 13,200.
200.
Okay. And over here, it is going to be, um, that is number of production runs,
20.
it is 20.
20.
So of that, of the 182,000 Rand, they're going to get allocated 3640 multiplied by 20 runs.
20.
So 72,800 gets allocated, of the 182 gets allocated
Mm.
to them. Okay. And then over here, we'll do the same. So here's going to be
10,000.
10,800. Over there is going to be the same. It's going to be 20,400.
400.
So what's it going to be? 10,800 number of units or cost driver multiplied by cost
Mm.
per. So I don't want to
Mm.
change this. It's going to be cost per driver. Okay. And that's going to be its cost. And then over here is going to be 20,400 multiplied by the cost per
30
driver. Okay. So maybe to change this, you can call it cost driver. Then you don't get confused.
Mm.
Okay. And so that will do for that. Then for this one, the cost driver for fashion relating to inspections is 36, whereas the cost driver for standard relating to inspections is 50.
51.
So now we're going to say, okay, for fashion, of the 30,600 Rand, they will be allocated 200 Rand per
200
cost
and
driver multiplied by
36.
36 inspections. So they get 7,200.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, for them, it would be 200 per cost driver multiplied
Mm.
by 51.
51.
Okay, so you can just do a check for yourself.
Mm.
This must always equal to the total. So if I
To the
add up the stuff, that plus
3,200.
that plus that, it must add up to the
12,000.
12,000 Rand.
12,000.
Okay. And the same thing for the cost driver, you need
Mm.
to add up to the 40,000. That plus that plus plus that. It must add up to the 40,000. That's how you
40,000.
kind of check that you have to doing some, it's
Then,
kind of right. Okay. And then over here, the number of runs is equal to 10 for fashion, whereas it is 20 for standard. Okay,
standard.
and so now we work out the cost per run is 3,640.
3,000.
Fashion has 10 runs, so that is what they get, 36,400. The number of runs that standard have is 20 multiplied by the cost per run, which is
Mm.
3,640, and that's what they get. So now you can see it all adds up. Okay. Now you can get the total cost that is allocated to, now you can get the cost to each product. So to
Mm.
glossy, the total fixed overheads allocated is 88,640. To fashion, the total cost allocated is
46.
46,840. And for standard, the total cost is 81,920,
89. Mm.
89,120, and that gives you the total 224,600. Before we stop, we need to just make sure what did the question ask. So let's go back to the question. The question said, calculate, we
Total.
did that, total actual fixed manufacturing overheads allocated to each product for the month. Okay, so to each product, they didn't say whether on a per unit level or on a total level. So you
Mm.
kind of open for interpretation. They just said each product.
Product.
They never said per unit or well,
Mm.
okay. So so at that point, it is fine. But let's say they said each product per unit. You still do it
Mm.
exactly the same. There will just be one more step. The one more
Mm.
step would be
To divide by the units.
divide by the number of units. So I'm going to have over here number of units, number of units, and then that will give you cost per
per unit.
unit. Cost per unit.
Unit.
So I'm going to go over here, number of units. What was it? 4,400.
4,400.
Over there, it was 1,800.
10,000.
And over here, it was 5,000,
5,100.
5,100.
Mm.
Okay. So therefore, the cost per unit, if they had to ask us for the cost per unit, they
Mm.
didn't, it would be 4,400. Okay, so I will just do that. It's 20 and 15. I'm going to make it in bold as well. So now I can just copy and paste this formula. So you might just pay careful attention as to what they're asking. Okay,
Mm.
so
Mm.
they just said each product. So for me to stop over here is totally fine. If they just
Fine.
say
Okay.
cost per unit for each
Mm.
product, I'd have to go up until 20 Rand 15, the 26 Rand 2 cents, and the 17 Rand 47. What's also very important, but I'll stress this out again as we go on, they just asked you to work out the fixed overheads allocated. So they only
Mm.
wanted this calculation. In another question, they'd have said, Dear Alvina or dear student, please calculate the cost of a product using the absorption costing method. Then what you should know, they want the cost of a product, which is direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overheads, which includes both fixed and variable. And
Mm.
all they are saying that the fixed manufacturing overheads must be calculated using activity-based costing. So that means there's two steps. There's this
Mm.
calculation and also the calculation of the cost of a product. But in this
Product. Okay.
question, they never asked you for the cost of a product. They just said calculate the fixed overheads allocated to a product.
Get it.
So it's
Okay.
very important to make sure you pick up the what is actually
Cost.
required. Okay,
Mm.
so so like I said, this is one method. The other method, this is one way of asking it. Another way would have been by saying go to calculate the cost per unit, and then
Unit.
we go
Mm.
further. The other way would be where they say calculate the cost of a product using ABC. So then we must. So this is
Okay.
this part over here is only calculating fixed manufacturing overheads.
Manufacturing
If they
overheads.
ask you for the cost of a product, we still needed to do the variable manufacturing,
Variable.
the direct material, and the
Mm.
direct labor. So just
Labor.
like
Okay.
be aware of what the required is asking. So that's all
Okay.
from my side. Do you have any questions?
No, no, not really.
Okay,
It's quite understandable
okay. So
for now.
now as we go on, we're gonna ask you to do some work as
Questions.
well. But for
Okay.
now, we just getting into it. Okay, so
Okay.
that is basically how
Okay.
you set it out. If
Okay.
you're probably gonna write online again. So if you
Mm.
used to, if I don't know if you write online and you type out, or whether you write out,
I tend to write out because it's faster for
it's
me.
faster for you. I'll probably
Yeah.
do the same.
Because it's
But
just for the time.
so what you call it, yes. So no, for exactly,
Yeah,
I'll
because
probably also write out
there's gonna be
myself
no time to format, nothing.
and all of that. So what I wanted to get to, if you write out, then
Mm.
still set out the question as it would
Mm.
be set out on Excel.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So however
Okay.
it's sitting out over here, you still set it out like that on
On my
paper.
piece of paper.
Okay.
Okay.
So you will
Don't
never.
worry, I'm used to having lots of uploads done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it from my side. If you have any other questions, you can
Okay.
let me know. But otherwise,
Oh,
we'll be done for the evening.
okay. Thank you so much, Thais. I
Okay.
really appreciate it.
Okay. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.